all the 34,684 polling stations in Uganda. Then you have the agents for the parliamentary candidates. In preparation for the general election, the Commission has acquired biometric.
All right, so we'll definitely continue monitoring the election even as Ugandans decide their leader in this particular election. We just want to discuss a little bit more about our neighboring country, who, needless to say, are very critical in terms of trade, being Kenya's biggest trade partner. Dr. David Matsanga, who's the chairperson of Pan-African Forum, joins me. Many thanks for your time and your contribution right here on Morning Express. I know you have particular interest in this particular election, and I'd like to begin right there. Public confidence in the ballot in the midst of an internet blackout. This is something Kenyans are not used to, but what do you make of this?
First of all, good morning, viewers of KTN News all over the whole world, in Uganda and Kenya. Thank you very much for inviting me to this show. I want, first of all, to make my position very clear, that I don't recognize scientific elections. I studied political science. I teach political science to the last iota. In any university, any London, anywhere you take me, I will recite, I will tell you, there has never been political as scientific elections. Scientific elections without scientific equipment are as much as dead as on arrival, because there were no scientific equipment, institutions that can conduct a scientific election. Even the United States of America, Britain, where I have been for over 36 years as a result of the turmoil caused by the same regime, there have never been scientific elections. So where you coined this word scientific elections, it is returned to the sender. However, the Ugandans will make a decision. Very many were eager to vote. Thousands and thousands, millions are eager to vote. My own district, my own area, which has over 400,000 voters, will vote, and they know whom to vote, and they will vote. But the problem that we have, the election has been marred by violence, very excessive violence, lack of giving the candidates the fair time, despite the fact of the coronavirus that has been there. Some candidates have been campaigning, some were not even allowed to stand to campaign, even to drink water. Just to stop to take water, police is on your neck. So when you talk about free and fair elections, when observers of international repute are withdrawing, who is going to recognize this? The East African community has sent observers. Believe me or not, Rogers, I don't think the results, I as a Ugandan who has been in struggle for 42 years, since we removed Idi Amin together with Museveni, we parted ways in 1981. He went to the bush. Some of us decided to remain in the government. All right. We were overthrown. We have struggled. We don't think. I've struggled for parties to return to Uganda. I'm very happy that the parties returned. Most of the colleagues in opposition today, some of them were in bed with the current government. All right. Thank you very much. Welcome to them. But I don't think there will be a free and a fair election. All right, now that's very important to note, especially since the candidate Bobi Wine, who has caused an effect in the Uganda's electorate, actually mentioned that he will reject today's election results if the polls are not free and fair. The U.S. election observation team were pulled out due to lack of accreditation, but they also said it would lack accountability and transparency. I think that speaks
to the public confidence in this particular election. But you brought up something very important, the violence that was meted against Ugandans in the run-up to the election. We had 54 people who were killed following Bobi Wine's arrest in November. This is not a good narrative, especially for a country which is an icon in the East African community as well. What do you make of the actions of the government, of the NRM party, and whoever was responsible in terms of suppression of democracy?
First of all, President Museveni and myself, we are soldiers. We have fought battles in northern Uganda. In 2006, the world, Kibaki, Salva Kiir, presidents of African Union, UN, under Chisano and Riek Machar, we hammered an agreement. I stopped one of the most brutal wars in the whole of Africa. The Lord Resistance Army, I negotiated an agreement. I risked my life, went to the bush to collect people who had murdered over 1 million people. I brought them on table. We hammered that agreement.
All right.
I returned 100,000 men back into Uganda. None of them has committed any crime whatsoever against the state. They have integrated very well, and they are still in Uganda. Two, the peace that we see is going to be broken by the excessive violence. I'm a peacemaker. I have already talked to Prime Minister Dr. Ruakana Rugunda. They are my comrades in the struggle, right from Tanzania when we started struggling against Idi Amin.
All right.
They are not new to me. There is excessive violence that we see, which is seen by everybody. Bob Wine cannot climb in a vehicle, cannot even drink water, cannot even stop. Yes, there is a pandemic, and don't underrate that. Uganda had done very well as far as the pandemic was concerned. Then why did you call something a sham, a scientific election? You should have gone. If people who have gone to school constitutionally, constitutional lawyers in Uganda should have moved to parliament to secure the term of the man who wants leadership. Then declare a state of emergency, protect the presidency, and then call elections when the COVID-19 is over. But because people were obsessed with changing the constitution, Museveni lost it. They were so obsessed, they should have stopped these elections.
All right.
The pandemic that is killing people. Two, for the first time, and I want to make this point very clear to the international community, the neighbors, Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, and other countries. For the first time, the core of the leadership of NRM is shaken. It is a movement that you cannot stop. And let the Electoral Commission make sure that this election is credibly, and I repeat, credibly, because the younger man and the others who are there are not alone. There are very many people following this election. Some of us are leaders in the politics of that country. We have given the baton to the younger people. We don't seem to have fought. You can't fight for 42 years. I've had a gun since 1978. I cannot hold it anymore. I have given the baton to the younger generation.
All right,
the messages were not there. So I am saying, credibly, if EU, AU, America, and other agencies withdraw from observing your elections, even America has problems. There is one question I want to leave to my people in Africa.
Briefly, sir.
Does Africa need elections? Do you know what an election is in Africa? How many leaders in Africa write 2 speeches when they go for an election? If you ask Museveni today whether he has written a conceding speech, Rogers, you might not find one in his court.
Well, that's interesting, especially since he mentioned he's ready to step out of office if the election is free and fair. So a lot is carried on that particular term, free and fair. Daktari, I'll give you time to respond. Let's just take a short break right now. But it's quite clear that this might be a battle or an election of the young versus the old. And just as you mentioned, you've passed the baton. Let's just see whether the election violence that was meted out against some of the Ugandans will lead to voter apathy, and we'll pick it up from that particular point. Let's take a short break. We'll continue highlighting the Uganda elections. Stay with us.
This is KTN News.
Go Ahead is believing to make each day a brighter day. It is our faith to start all over again. Go Ahead is never giving up in the face of adversity. To go ahead, now that is the Kenyan spirit.
Kuenda mbele ni roho ya Kenya.
When it comes to our children's education, we believe that it's key to their future. Consequently, we help pass on knowledge through our Tutor-Soma online, unlocking their doors to success. As the COVID-19 pandemic looms, we have partnered with Oxford University Press, Longhorn Publishers, and Msingi Pack to keep their dreams alive through the Tutor-Soma online platform. For just 70 shillings per week, enjoy unlimited access to the reputably credible source of revision materials, KICD approved notes, lessons and video tutorials for all students, including candidates for both primary and secondary schools. All you have to do is log into Tutor-Soma at standardmedia.co.ke and make homeschooling a possibility, much more conveniently and with fun. Even at home with Tutor-Soma Online, the future is brighter and filled with promise. Tutor-Soma Online. Log in to success. A partnership between the Standard Group and the Oxford University Press, Longhorn Publishers, and Msingi Pack.
How has coronavirus changed consumer behavior in sub-Saharan Africa?
What we've seen with HCPs, for instance, is a case where now they're not seeing some of the patients in their clinics. So because of that, they need to get very innovative ways to make sure they still see their patients.
Is telemedicine the future of medicine?
Telemedicine will still play a part, but I believe the face-to-face kind of interaction is very critical.
Is there a specific skill that you look for when it comes to hiring?
Attitude for me is everything. You can be the brightest mind in the world, you can be the most intelligent person in the world, but with a bad attitude, you'll not get anywhere.
This is KTN News.
Welcome back. You're watching Morning Express. Thank you for staying with us. We highlight the elections in Uganda. Our neighbors, definitely something to look to, even as the polling stations were opened at 7 a.m. I'm still joined by Dr. Matsanga, who is actually helping me delve deeper into some of the core issues that were brought into light in the run-up to the elections. Now, Daktari, we were talking about the suppression of democracy, the violence meted out against not just Ugandans, but members of the press in the run-up to the election. My question is, quite briefly, would this actually hamper the election results? How important is the turn-up, the voter turnout, in terms of deciding the winner in this particular election? Bearing in mind the voter turnout in 2016 was roughly 60%.
I think this is going to be lower than 60%. You know why? Where the government is insecure in the vote, especially the Buganda area, the central province, which is Chagulanyi's support base, they stopped any campaigns there. They brought an army, a crack units of army. These are men who are called Mogadishu butchers. You know, when you hear the word Mogadishu butcher, you know what happens in Mogadishu. So these are men. And the President Museveni went on record. It's not Matanga. I have no problem. I have no personal problem, despite what he has done to some of us personally. I don't want to say it on this television station.
Okay.
He said, I brought crack units from DRC Congo, and I brought crack units from Somalia. Most of the commanders are no joke. If you come out and make a mess, we shall deal with you perpendicular.
All right.
Or horizontal. Now, if you have such threats, my brother, how will the people, especially the people of Central Province, they fear guns. Some of them fear to hear the gun sound. They will not come back. They will not come to vote. So the voter turnout would have been huge had there not been deployment. It is more or less of a battlefield. Let's accept Rogers. It is a battlefield in the urban areas, the upper areas outside where the TV does not reach, where internet does not reach, where His Excellency was able to converse with convoys and the convoys of his men. The other opposition leaders were stopped by the police.
So voter apathy is definitely a challenge in this particular election.
Yes, the voter apathy will come in. But that is the only thing that will stop the victory, especially in the Central Province. Let me give you the figures, break it down.
Before you do that, sir, it's something that was highlighted by some of the opposition candidates, the factor of protecting the ballot. We had Changulanyi actually urge his voters, and also Bessie J, to not just vote, wear your mask and ensure you remain at the polling station to secure this vote. How do you think this might turn out, having known President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni and his style of leadership?
He has told, you know, the president doesn't, His Excellency did not miss his words. And you know, one of the things that when this case of Uganda goes to international courts, brother, it is going to be very interesting. His statements will be read verbatim. He said, we have brought in people. Those who want to vote should vote and go away. These are statements he has made. And the Electoral Commission last night came in to say, President Museveni is a personal statement. He cannot direct the Electoral Commission to do what he is supposed to, what he has directed. Now, the battlefield is going to begin. Chagulanyi and Besigye, my comrades, General Muntu, General Tumkunde, Katumba, the Lady Kalembe, those are men that I have grown to take over the mentorship. They are going to have a problem when their supporters don't leave the polling stations. They are telling their supporters not to leave. Use the phone to take photos. Museveni is saying, you vote, you leave. That is where the trouble, the rubber will meet the road. Now, and the trouble in from such incidents.
Now, Dr. Matsanga, even as we continue, many concerns have arisen, and I have to highlight this because for any proper functioning democracy, the importance of media freedom cannot be underestimated. And we've seen concerns about media freedom and harassment of reporters ahead of this vote. We even had the police chief, Martin Okoth, mentioning that reporters were actually beaten for their own good to prevent them from going to places where their lives might be at risk. As we highlight the tabulation of results after this particular election, how important is the space of media freedom in Uganda right now?
It's not there. You are talking of space? Rogers, there is no, which space? Which space? I want to thank the government of Kenya for giving the media space. In Kenya, you can even insult President Uhuru Kenyatta. You can even tell him names. They will not come for you in the studio. In Uganda, try to even just say, Museveni was wearing a very bad shirt today. You will not come down. You will not leave the studio. There is no freedom of press in that place. I'm a Commonwealth senior journalist. I have my international card for practicing journalism anywhere on the planet Earth. And I can sit anywhere and practice. There is no media freedom given to the media. The media themselves, Chagulanyi's media, has been all rounded up. Chagulani today has remained with nobody. All the younger men have been taken to safe houses. They are being beaten, tortured in safe houses.
All right, and this is something Changulanyi has been quite vocal about. We must mention that.
He's right. The leader of FDC, Rogers, the leader of FDC, has been beaten more than campaign. He has been beaten more than campaign. Amriat. The only people they have feared is General Tumukunde and the General Mugisha, because they have an army. They also have part of the army. And you see, there is a problem here that African dictators forget to see. Bokassa, Mobutu, Seko, all these people, Mubarak, they forget. This army that you use to beat people can reach a point to say, hello, the people we are beating are our children, our brothers, our sisters. You know Mugabe. I am a great friend of President late Mugabe. I gave him advice to create a transitional government in Addis Ababa, in Sheraton Hotel. He went to tell the wife to create a government. He was overthrown by his own army, my good friends Chiwenga and Zimbisio Moyo and Munagawa.
Okay.
Those are my people. So please, when you are treating these people the way you are treating, don't think that police does not have a relative.
All right.
Don't think army has no relative. In short, the media freedom in Uganda does not exist. The media freedom in Uganda is given to the very few people.
Now,
and those people can say what has been censored.
Now, Dr. Matsanga, allow us to take a look at the demographic in Uganda. And we've had this time and time again. More than 3/4 of the population is actually under 35 years. That translates to, if I'm not wrong, nearly 80%. So this is what is on the ground. More people were actually born when Museveni was already in power. They only know a Museveni presidency. How important is the mind shift, especially what Bobby Wine brings on the table, bearing in mind this demographic that Uganda is dealing with? How important is this? Because the word outside here, it's the young versus the old in this election.
Exactly. Rogers, you hit the point. Over 85%. Some of them know Matsanga because I am outspoken. I brought peace in northern Uganda. But they don't know who the other leaders were. They only know President Museveni. My own children, about 4 of them, asked me who was the president before. Only 3 of them were born in 1980, 81, and 83. Now, this is the truth. And why the government is muzzling the entire populace from voting and stifling the whole situation is these men, these younger boys, these younger girls are not even hearing any word from their own leader who was there in 1986. 36 years. Chagulanyi is 37. When some of us started struggling against President Museveni, Chagulanyi was not born. He is now leading the battle. That's why some of us are saying, if my child, my son is there, let him go. That's what we do in Africa. So the truth is demographics are working against the NRM. All what the NRM are going to do is to come and steal the vote.
Now, that brings into context.
Yes, what they will do? Oh, they would steal the vote. But if there was a free and a fair without COVID, flat out, if it was free, there was no COVID in Uganda today.
All right.
This would have been a very good lesson just put across to the whole African continent that has dictators that stay in power more than they are welcome.
Oh, all right. Now, despite the internet blackout, as your friendly neighbors, we'll definitely try and continue monitoring. But speaking of friendly neighbors, that brings into context the larger East African community. I mean, Kenya and Uganda go way back. It goes without saying, I mentioned earlier on Uganda being one of Kenya's largest trading partner, regional interests as well, bearing in mind the number of troops that Uganda contributes to the peace mission under AMISOM. So it goes without saying, in terms of regional development, Uganda is a key component in the East African community. How important should the democracy be for the neighbors, Kenya included, upholding the democratic right of the people to vote and elect their leader?
I and President Museveni agree on one thing: African integration, East African integration. I'm one of those who does not believe in villages, tribes, ethnicity, and countries. I believe in a Pan-African dream, a continental dream, a global dream. There we agree. I and President Museveni agree on the question of Somalia. When it comes to finding peace, I have no regrets for standing up, even when I'm in opposition. Even when I've been hurt more than even Besigye, I stand up and agree and I say he did a good job to send the troops in Somalia, to pacify Somalia. I disagree on the mother of democracy. Democracy is pitting ambition against ambition, as Abraham Lincoln said. But we have a problem here. How will East Africa integrate when we have some people elongating, removing term limits from their constitutional hindrance, from constitutional dispensation? Constitutionalism is there, but shrinkage, and mark my words, shrinkage of constitutionalism is what kills Africa. A united, there is one thing that Uganda has, and don't worry about the trade. Uganda will continue trading with Kenya. Nobody is stopping that trade. I'm one of those people who will never call for sanctions against Uganda. All right. In my lifetime of 42 years, I've never called for sanctions to come and hit Uganda. Because sanctions kill the ordinary people. But the constitution of Uganda brought what we call unity of purpose. I want to thank the late President Obote for dismantling some of these kingdoms that were bringing chaos. I also want to take this opportunity to say Museveni has managed to bring the Uganda as a nation together. Okay. But he is going to destroy it, and the trade between Kenya and Uganda will continue to flourish. But how will it flourish when one country has got a military type of governance, while Kenya enjoys the best democracy, the best freedoms of press, association, assembly, and others? That is impossible. So let East Africa integrate on a uniform level.
Okay, what better way to end it? Many thanks, Dr. David Matsanga, giving us his input, quite experienced right there in matters regional development, especially touching on Uganda. He's the chairperson of the Pan-African Forum. Many thanks for your contribution right here, and we definitely can't wait to see how this election pans out. Speaking of, we continue highlighting what exactly is happening in our neighboring Uganda. Roughly 17 million registered voters are making their way to various ballot stations to make their decision, not just in the presidential election, but the parliament.